Matthew 24, verses 36 to 51. But concerning that day and hour no one knows, not even the angels of heaven nor the Son, but the Father only. For as were the days of Noah, so will be the coming of the Son of Man. For as in those days before the flood, they were eating, drinking, marrying, and giving in marriage. Until the day when Noah entered the ark, they were unaware until the flood came and swept them all away. So will be the coming of the Son of Man. Then 2 men will be in the field, one will be taken and one left. 2 women will be grinding at the mill, one will be taken and one left. Therefore, stay awake, for you do not know on what day your Lord is coming. But know this, that if the master of the house had known in what part of the night the thief was coming, he would have stayed awake and would not have let his house be broken into. Therefore you must also be ready, for the Son of the Man is coming at an hour you do not expect. Who then is the faithful and wise servant, whom the master has set over his household to give them their food at the proper time? Blessed is that servant whom his master will find so doing when he comes. Truly I say to you, he will set him over all his possessions. But if that wicked servant says to him, my master is delayed, and begins to beat his fellow servants and eats and drinks with drunkards, the master of the servant will come on a day when he does not expect and at an hour he does not know, and will cut him into pieces and put him with the hypocrites and in that place where there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. Please welcome Pastor John.
Morning, church. Wow, time went by so quickly. 3 weeks gone, and we've been coming to the end of learning about the end times, eschatology, right? We've been journeying 3 weeks now, talk about the end time things. And we read the book of Matthew, chapter 24. We also now landed to the end, the very last section of chapter 24, when the disciple, I don't know if you still remember how this all came about, was the disciple was asking Jesus, what was the end will be like? When would it happen, right? This is what the disciples was asking from Matthew 24:3. As Jesus was sitting on the Mount of Olives, the disciple came to him privately. Tell us, they said, when will this happen? And what will be the sign of your coming and of the end of the age? So that's what the disciples was asking. And that's why then Jesus unfolded to them what will happen. In the beginning, when Jesus in chapter 24, we're talking about there is no one who will know. There will be a lot of tragic things. So in the beginning of it, what will happen? You will see nation against another nation. There will be famine over the world. There will be many tragic things. And then further down, last week then we said, you better pray to the Father to shorten this tribulation, because no one really able to hang on to these tragic things. Pray to the Father that these things will be shortened. And then this week, as we're wrapping in 24, what we just read, what we just heard was, yes, as these, suddenly one will be taken, the other will be left. And at the same time, you do not know when. You do not know when. But Jesus also tells them to do one thing. Stay awake. No one's know. Just like you don't know when the thief will come breaking into your house. If you know, you would be staying awake and not let it to break in, right? And that's what Jesus was saying. Because you don't know. So stay awake. And then after chapter 24, now you got the fuller picture of how this all came to. Then Jesus gave the immediate three parables to what he just talked about in the entire chapter 24. That's why we went through the 10 virgins. That's why we went through the talents that have been given, right? Talents is not talking about gifts, but it's talking about the money, the finance that the master has owned in possession, but gave it to his servant to be steward, to exercise, right? The first week when we talked about 10 virgins, the key was what? to be watchful, to be ready, because you don't know when, right? You need to be prepared. Is your life demonstrating, reflecting those spirituality in your life? Are you exercising them? Or you like, when he comes, and you will become those 5 foolish virgins. When it's come, oh, can I borrow some oil that you have prepared extra? Sorry, I'm afraid I didn't have, well, go buy. There might be some store, but on the time they return, the master, the bridegroom already enter in with the 5 who prepared. So be ready, be watchful, right? For you don't know when's the time. And then last week we talked about what? The talents. You are to work. God has given you, Jesus has given you a task you are to complete. You have been given possessions in your leisure to expend, to exercise. Are you like the 3 talents that the 5 talents and you double it, and now you got 10 in return? And then the 2, also double it with 4? Or you are like the 1 that you didn't exercise, buried it, and what the master was talking about, I will come back and I will settle your account. He was like an accountant, that I will come settle your account with you. That's what the text said, right? I will return and settle the account. You each will present what I have given to you, entrusted in you to be exercised. And those who faithful, what did the master say? Come, you faithful servant, come and enjoy the happiness of your master, right? We all longing for that one day when Jesus returns, we'll be hearing my master to say, come, and you faithful servant, come and enjoy the happiness of your master. Or instead, the one was saying even, hey, Lord, I know you are the hard master. You will ask me of where you have not worked and you expect me to. But I was afraid and I will lose it, and then here it is exactly how you give it to me. The Lord then we're asking, you knew, you lazy, you wicked servant. You, whatever you have then will be taken away, and you will be just like the end of what we just read in chapter 24. You'll be weeping and gnashing your teeth outside in the darkness. Which one you prefer, right? It was, of course I want to be in the one being welcome. Then the application will be, okay, be watchful. Exercise what you have, right, for the Lord. How? Well, then, first, gather, collect what you have. Well, inventory what God's given to you, whether it's time, whether it's talent, whether it's finance, whether it's your intelligence. Gather those. Or how can I be exercising those for the Lord's sake? Right? Align them gradually. And don't just make a big picture, let me save the world. I need to convert the whole. No, the Lord will just give you according to what you're capable, right? The Lord did not give 5 talents to the 1 talent. God did not give the 5 money bags to the one that only able to handle 1 money bag. Where God will not give you more than what you're capable of. And if you're capable, and the text also said what? You faithful. You are faithful in a few things. And then what? I'll give you more to handle. For you are a faithful servant. Then you will gradually have more. Don't always complain, right? At the end or last week, don't complain that, Lord, what you expect of me is more than I can know. The Lord said, what I give you is according to what you're capable of. Just be a faithful steward. So this week then came into where we're going to get into the last eschatology, learning about these end time things. Why does it matter? Now you should begin to see the end time thing is not just a mystical story to scare you, to make you like frightened. We've talked about it. It's not about that. But rather to get you to equip. Matter of fact, whether you're ready or not, the Lord is coming, right? The fact is, He is coming. So why the Lord giving us all these to you is so that you be prepared, so that you will be welcome into His feast. So don't waste the time. Don't waste till the end and let me start getting work. there will be no time. The time is near. So it comes to where we have to date is Matthew 25, verses 31 to 46. The last parable that Jesus gave regarding when the disciples was asking, when will these happen? What are the signs? And Jesus gave this last parable. So listen up. When the Son of Man comes in his glory and all the angels with him, he will sit on his glorious throne. All the nations will be gathered before him, and he will separate the people one from another as the shepherd separates the sheep from the goats. He will put the sheep on his right and the goats on his left. Then the king will say to those on his right, "Come, you who are blessed by my Father, take your inheritance, the kingdom prepared for you since the creation of the world. For I was hungry, and you gave me something to eat. I was thirsty, and you gave me something to drink. I was a stranger, and you invited me in. I needed clothes, you clothed me. I was sick, and you looked after me. I was in prison, and you come to visit me." Then the righteous will answer him, "Lord, when did we see you hungry and feed you, or thirsty and gave you something to drink? When did we see you a stranger and invite you in, or needing clothes and clothed you? When did we see you sick or in prison and go to visit you?" The king will reply, "Truly I tell you, whatever you did for one of the least of these brothers and sisters of mine, you did for me." Then he will say to those on his left, "Depart from me, you who are cursed, into the eternal fire prepared for the devil and his angels. For I was hungry, and you gave me nothing to eat. I was thirsty, and you gave me nothing to drink. I was a stranger, and you did not invite me in. I needed clothes, and you did not clothe me. I was sick and in prison, and you did not look after me." They also will answer, "Lord, when did we see you hungry or thirsty or a stranger or needing clothes or sick or in prison and did not help you?" He will reply, "Truly I tell you, whatever you did not do for one of the least of these, you did not do for me." Then they will go away to eternal punishment, but the righteous to eternal life. Again, parables are very easy to understand. Very vivid, very clear picture, right? Not difficult. I mean, as I said, we were talking about, there are a lot of pictures that going through your mind as like an animation when Jesus was giving these parables, right? And that's why many of the early Christians in the 14th to the 19th century Christians, they painted a lot of pictures. I mean, you knew me that I study art, and I read through a lot of art pictures when I was in my undergrad. And many of the pictures, as I was reading this, right, there are many of these picture ceiling frescoed or oil painting just pop right back into my mind. Oh, I finally know when I was studying what are the significance of these pictures, right? As an artist, you have to know how to criticize and how to understand, how to appreciate. So we read through each of these pictures and know what are the significance of these. So these pictures were painted by Christians. They were once paid by the church and then go into the church to decorate the ceiling or the walls of the church. So this one was done by an artist called Giotto di Bondi. So he was painting this picture called The Last Judgment. It was a fresco on the wall done in the 14th century. Still find it in one of the Italy chapel. And what is this significance of this picture of this is perhaps when you start looking in this picture and some of the scripture will start reminding you that you have read from what we've read from book of Matthew or from the book of Revelation. You see in a circle, which is where Jesus Christ coming in a throne, what we just read in chapter 25. Jesus will come in his glory and his glorious throne. And then next on his left and right are the 12 apostles, judging those people who are coming before Christ. They were judging along with God. And then above this, there was the angel. So you see there are 3 sections. Above are the people watching how Christ is going to judge. And then in the middle section is where Christ and the apostle. And right below it are where everyone lining up to be judged. When I'm looking at on the screen, on the left of the screen is where people being judged, and then they will be entered into the heaven. And the picture on the right on the screen, those are the people are going into the eternal fire being punished. One of the most significant is right at the bottom of the picture. You see that, I don't know if you're able to see it, there is a character being kneeled down and making offering to the church. There was a church building, okay? And it was basically the artist trying to make a call. People were trying to buy their way earning into heaven. But of course, it didn't happen. What in the middle was 2 angels, the archangels of Michael and the archangels and the angels of Raphael holding the cross. That's where they need to go through to be judged. So this is one of this painting. Another painting is done in France. This painting was basically hanging in the hospital where people are about to die, and hanging on the ceiling, which is when people laying on their bed, when they look up to the ceiling, they will see this Last Judgment painting. Perhaps it's reminding them the hope that they will have when they depart from this world, that they will be entering to heaven. So at the same time, on the left of the screen, you will see that there will be angels ushering people enter into the gate of heaven. And now on the other side, on the right side of the screen, is where people will be going into hell. Now, this parable we're talking about, when Jesus comes being the shepherd, he'll be separating the sheep from the goats. And in the back in the time, and then parables was easy for people to understand because just a day-to-day thing, story that people to do. At the end, because sheep have their own wool, at night the shepherd will separate them so that they will be on their own, they can be independent. But the goats, they will usually gather together so that they can keep warm. So that's why they will separate them. For the sheep and the goats, easy to understand. They just got to separate because they don't belong together. But in this specific one, that Jesus parable that he referred to is, of course, talking about the judgment that he was referred to, separating the sheep and the goats. And then under the picture, this one you might have seen as well if you've been to Europe, into Rome. This was when in Vatican City, one of the chapel, one of the fresco done by Michelangelo, the Last Judgment as well. And some of these, the significance of this picture, because it was large, it was all over the very high ceiling wall of the church, and at the same time it was been very vividly arranged different groups of people gathering together, that which the individual groups has its own story to tell. And of course, some people would then question about Michelangelo's theology, why all these nudity happens in the church. And then you see the previous one was everybody were clothed, right? But why Michelangelo painted everyone with nude? And then there was a time that was in art history when I was studying it, that after Michelangelo was gone finishing this artwork, the church basically covering up all this nudity, because that's the church. We don't promote these kind of things. But of course, after time, they reviewed it again. So this was one of a part of the ceiling fresco that Michelangelo did about the Last Judgment. This is another one that was done by another artist. He was basically is a poet, William Blake. He's also an artist. He painted this using watercolor. That he was a specific one that hated religion. He doesn't like all the formality, the church system type of thing. So he added a lot of horror and a personal imagination of what the last judgment would be like. And this one would be the one that I really want to focus on, which is one of the small chapel in Italy that they have this mosaic, built by stone. And it was talking about how Christ in the middle, dressed in purple, separating the sheep and the goat, which is exactly the parable that we have talked about today. It's done in the 6th century. When people were looking at this was, why Jesus separating the sheep and the goat? And many of you, perhaps when you were hearing this parable, I definitely want to be like a sheep. I want to dress Jesus. I want to give him food. I want to, do all this. That's why they were able to enter into heaven. Those who did not do it, they need to go to hell. That's where the very first perception people will go into. Whether you are a Christian or non-believers, when you hear this text, this will be the things that they will immediately focus in what I need to do so that I can go into heaven. And what I need to fulfill so that I can be called righteous. Is this something that I did do or something I forgot to do? I must do my checklist. They assume the reason that they're able to enter is because the acts, the works that they have done. They have done good works, and then in the contrary, because you didn't do it, that's why you go to hell. That's what the Bible was talking about, right? But if you look into closer in verse 31, when you're understanding who's going to judge, who's going to come to judge, it's Jesus, right? In verses 31, we're talking about what? When the Son of Man come in his glory and all the angels with him, he will sit on his gracious throne. When you're being judged, it's not judged by you and I of you did better, you're more rich, you have done more things than I do, I'm better than you, I'm able to live up to the standard than you, that's why I'm able to enter and you're not. But we are all equally judged under the glorious Christ when his return. You need to know that by going through this judgment is going through this mercy throne. It's not up to you, it's not because of what you have done, but all by the grace and mercy of Christ. Then you will start saying, okay, well then it's not fair. How do I know? Well, Scripture has been giving us to you, to and I, that you can read. You have heard. There is no more excuse of, I do not know, Lord. Remember, we read about it. There's no more excuse for you at that time. When Jesus Christ comes, he's going to end all these suffering, all these pain, all these tears, all these killing that's happening in this world, putting the end to sin. That's why it's called glorious and mercy's throne. However, you really need to know that it's not about what you did or what you not did. This parable is not praising what the sheep did do or what the goat did not do. Let's read this. 40. The king, which is Christ when he returns, the king will reply, truly I tell you, whatever you did for one of the least of these brothers and sisters of mine, you did for me. Also in 45, he will reply, truly I tell you, whatever you did not do for one of the least of these, you did not do for me. The focus is not really you did what or you did not do what. The focus is really on who did you did it to. You do it for Christ, or you do it for your own benefit so that I can enter into heaven. Then that's not mercy. That's not grace. It's salvation, not by works. We're learning about it, right? So the blind spot that you and I often, or people often has, is thinking about salvation is for themselves. I need to earn, I need to come to church, I need to be a good Christian so that I can guarantee, or I need to be able to have it, one step into the heaven. We got it all wrong. There is no one able to earn their way into heaven, not by good morals. Don't think that church has been promoting good morals. Do this, do this. If so, we're preaching the wrong gospel, the false gospel to you. There's no one able to earn their way through good works into heaven. On the other hand, some of the people that we know, when you see the injustice happening in this world, when you're seeing how come all these, famine, people are going to bed hungry, people are being suppressed, there are people suffering, powers being abused by those who are in positions, in authority. There are pain happening in this world. There are a lot of unfairness. Why? They have asked this question, where is God? Right? Why, God, you're allowing these things happen? Matter of fact, something happened to one of you and I that we know that why this person needs to go through such a suddenly sufferings in sickness. We don't understand. I asked the question, why too? Why, Lord, this person needs to go through this? Wasn't this person preaching in your name, loving in your name, doing the works for you? I was also went into my blind spot of, hey, Lord, she did what she's supposed to, what you have called her. I don't see the reason. But the Lord was saying, no, it's salvation. It's not by works. You got it all wrong, John. It's from this mercy seat. The reason that I call it you to become a Christian is so that you will shine and do the things among these sick, among these who are hopeless, among these people who are in pain, so that when you do it to them, you will do it for me. Sometimes when we say, Lord, you are not there, and when I was in pain, Lord, I don't see you. But the most pain, the most suffering, Christ already has done it on the cross. When I shared this exact same thing to my sister, this is what the sister exactly told me too. I didn't walk the journey of her. I didn't suffer what she'd been through. But she said, wow, John, this I thought is rock bottom. I thought this is hard. This is painful. But it's given me a glimpse of what Christ has been through on the cross. He was on the cross while everybody abandoned him. While we're still rejecting him, he loved us and went on this cross for you and me. That's what the sister able to see, something that I did not see. When you look into this grace and mercy of the cross, what Jesus laid down his life for you, he suffered a death. He took away the pain. He bare the shame for you. Where you see suffering, there is Christ. How are you going to respond to it? When you see Christ suffered, which is equivalent to when you see someone suffering in hunger, that is Christ right there. How did you respond? Christian, how did you respond? When you see, I see injustice happening in this world, that's Christ right there. How did you respond? Did you just walk away? Oh, it's not my matter. I cannot help, out of my ability, and then I walk. This is why Jesus was saying, when I was in jail, when I was drunk, when I was thirst, you did not feed me. You did not give me what I need. For those who did it to the least of these brothers, you did it for me. Christ is calling you and I into these suffering, this pain, so that Christ's love, Christ's suffering, taking away these suffering, taking away this pain, will be there. In the day of judgment, Christ will ask you, what have you done? Have you done anything for him? Not you done anything for you so that you can go into heaven. What have you done for him so people will know about his name? Those who need it are the least among you, people that you will see, are the exact manifestation of the presence of Christ. Those are the people that don't see Christ. When you go feed, when you go provide drink, when you clothe them, those are the manifestation of the presence of Christ. How did you respond? In the opposite, the contrary, the contrast of it is, if you do nothing, you are manifesting the evil. Do not love, do not care, do not act, and you respond in silence. This is where the word of Christ was giving us. In verse 34, then the king will say to those on his right, which is the sheep, come, you who are blessed by my Father, take your inheritance, the kingdom prepared for you since the creation of the world. Again, when you're able to enter into the heaven, it's not what you did, but what the Father in the foundation creation of the world, he already prepared for you. So you will be able to enter. Nothing you do add on to what qualifies this grace and mercy for you to enter into heaven. Moreover, verses 41, then he will say to those on his left, which is the goat in the parable, depart from me, you who are cursed, into the eternal fire prepared for the devil and his angels. When we are not manifesting the love, the presence of Christ among the least that who are in need, you are manifesting the devil. Don't think that, oh, I didn't really do nothing. You are part of those. Because you're doing the exact opposite of Christ is calling us to do. You are not exercising what God has given for the talents that entrusted in you. That's why he will come to settle your account with you. You're also going to come in a time that you're not prepared. You thought you're going to procrastinate. You're going to think you have time. For the time is near. He will come in a time that you do not know the day. You do not know the hour. So then what? Be ready. Be watchful. Be prepared always. So what was Jesus' purpose and intention for all these eschatology that we've been reading throughout these 3 weeks? You are to be ready. You are to be faithful. You are to be glorified because Christ is coming into this glorious throne to judge. If you manifesting his grace, his mercy among the least of the brothers, you are doing it for him. You're revealing God's mercy and grace among these. How are you going to respond, brothers and sisters? Let us pray. But as we gather into you, your word has been spoken. Your word has been proclaimed. Your people have heard your word. For me coming before you, Lord, on your judgment day, I might have carried a lot of things that I claimed that I have worked. But Lord, as you have told us, none of these matters. None of these will earn us into your heaven. But what you're going to ask us is, have we did it for you? Or am I accumulating things for me, for myself? Am I doing it for the Lord, for the glory of your name, for the manifestation of your presence among the least, those who are in need? Lord, your word's been spoken is for the purpose that we need to respond. And each of us are in our different life situations. Some are students, some are employee workers, some has family, some are parents, some are husband, some are wives. What is my role in this earth while you're calling me to continue to live? How do I become missional for you every day in this end time? In Jesus Christ's name we prayed. Amen.